Hello, hello, and welcome.
Welcome, everybody.
We're excited to be with you again today on this first day of spring, March 21st, 2020. Welcome to our monthly broadcast, looking at the energies, both of the last bit of March, where we are now, and into the full month of April. So we're going to take you week by week through both the matrix of the planetary energies and also through the astrological energies as well as human design. So through both of these lenses, astrology and human design, we get so much more multidimensional kind of information about our evolutionary process. And we're going to be sharing that with the backdrop of looking at what the planets are doing, again, both through the backdrop of the constellations through astrology and through the backdrop of the 64 gates through human design. So we want to offer a warm welcome to everyone. And for those of you who are new to our community, you are most welcome. We warmly, warmly welcome you. This production is done monthly as just a gift to our community. But we do want you to know there is an exciting opportunity that's available for you right now. And that is that we have a program that we'd love to have you take a look at and see if it calls to you. So, human design has revolutionized the lives of thousands of our clients and students all over the world. If you offer a service of any kind, such as coaching or counseling or educational seminars or healing work, or if you're a subject matter mentor, then adding our approach to evolutionary human design to your service delivery will not only add huge value for your clients, but also provide another income stream for you. So we've seen this over years with our clients and students who've gone through the human design training, that they've really been able to broaden and widen their repertoire of what they can offer, and therefore also attract more business and therefore more revenue, which is always a good thing. So we've just launched our spring series of our human design training. It's called Human Design Training Series. And it's open now. A new group of students is forming. And so for those of you who feel called to learn more, to lean into human design a little deeper, you can learn more at humandesignforusall.com/HDTS. H for human, D for design, T for training, S for series, HDTS.
So humandesignforusall.com/HDTS. Check it out.
Yes. Okay. So let's begin. We're going to start with, let's look at a little bit just at the energy of the spring equinox, which just happened the night of March 19th. I say the night of March 19th because for us in Pacific time, it was about 9 p.m. that night. But here we are a few days later, and for most people, the spring equinox happened, for many people in the world, the spring equinox happened actually in the early hours of March 20th. Regardless, we are now in a new season, and also we want to give just a nod to our followers who are in the Southern Hemisphere. And we recognize that for you, it's not the beginning of spring, it's the beginning of fall, but nevertheless, it's a powerful turning point in the wheel of human experience. And any time we have an equinox, it's a point in time in which the days and the nights are equal length. And it's kind of a balance point in our whole cycle, our yearly cycle of human experience. So when we're at that balance point, it's really a great opportunity to get insights and sort of understanding about what it is that we might be experiencing or desiring to experience or putting out there as a new beginning. I say new beginning because when the sun enters Aries, it is astrologically a new beginning. It's the beginning of a 12-month cycle. and the urge to create a new, to do new things or explore new territories, that sort of thing, is very strong at that time. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yes, it's very potent. We're coming up on a whole new moon in these next couple of days. And that again opens up another chapter for us as well. And it's a very interesting chapter because at the time we describe a new moon, sun and moon are in the same part of the sky together, and they're also cohabiting that area of the sky with the asteroid Chiron. And Chiron has a lot to do with us balancing our worldly and spiritual sides of life. So we'll talk more about this in a moment, but just to be aware that this spring equinox, or this fall equinox, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's got a little potency around it this time around.
Yes, and it doesn't always. It's always a turning point, but this one has a little added zing to it with the addition of Chiron in there. Chiron essentially is saying it's time for us to align more with our higher self, with our soul wisdom, with our soul essence, and live more and more from that place instead of from the place of our our personality self. Not that there's anything wrong with the personality self, but when the personality self is informed by the soul, then we have empowered living. So that's really what we're talking about, is developing that soul awareness and bringing it in. So it's not just something that happens like over here when you meditate in the morning or at yoga, but it's something that is in the fabric of your daily life and relationships. So one of the things that we see happening here in the latter part of March is that an aspect that's been really strong for the last month or 6 to 8 weeks even, Mars and Jupiter and Pluto all together in the sign of Capricorn, that aspect is about to begin to come to a point of maximum focus when Mars and Jupiter go exactly conjunct. Mars has to do with our work in the world. Jupiter has to do with the desire for expansion and growth and new, exploring new horizons. Pluto has to do with transformation. They've been together for a while, and really, you could say, wreaking some havoc in some of our political systems, monetary systems,
and our health systems,
and government systems. But all of that shakeup is meant to be a wake up about what needs to change in our systems. So we have that going on, but on a personal level, these energies can be used right now very effectively for high implementation and bringing empowering changes into the systems of our lives, even the system of how we're managing our daily affairs, as well as if you have a business or some profession that you're in, how you're managing that. So a time to get clearer about the structure that's important for you to develop or up-level at this point, at this juncture. Mercury, the planet that has to do with communication, has just moved into the sign of Pisces. And Pisces is this flowing kind of energy. Mercury and Pisces, it's Mercury's the thinking process and the communicating process, and it's thought of in Pisces as being very artistically inspired, spiritually inspired. So we could be getting great downloads of inspiration, and I think that's even highlighted even more by the fact that Uranus, the planet of radical changes, is in a very favorable aspect with Mercury, as well as the soul path for all humanity, moving in a direction that's really supporting that kind of up-leveling. So speaking of the soul path for humanity, it's the trajectory that humanity as a whole is on. It's our way of experiencing our life, our world in our current times as a global community. And where the moving soul path has been for the past about 18 months has been in the sign of Cancer. So there's been a lot of focus on our families, our homes, what brings us security, a sense of safety, well-being. Very soon, I think it's early May, the North Nodal axis, which is what we're looking at here when we look at the soul path, is moving back into the sign of Gemini. So we're going to have a whole new 18-month agenda in terms of our evolutionary or our soul growth as a humanity into greater communication, even more ways to link our ways of joining communities and opening up conversations that perhaps we weren't able to do in the past. So exciting time. And then the other thing that's exciting about this time is that Venus, the planet that has to do with love and money and artistic expression and beauty, is in a beautiful aspect with Neptune. So that's going to bring, it's going to really nurture a higher vision for us, and it's going to bring a lot of creative inspiration and really elevated illumination about how we're living out our values.
So having a look at the human design perspective, I talked a moment ago about this new moon that's taking place. The sun is in gateway number 17. And in the human design system, gate number 17, it relates to the right eye, how we see things, how we look out to see things. And we call the gateway of following. And we derive from that opinions, that an opinion will have something that follows it, another piece of logic that will follow that. And so this new moon is taking place in this whole arena that has to do with how we think about things, and thinking particularly towards future aspects. If you consider about logic, logic is always looking for an assured future. And it's only, it's a part of our life. But, the tendency is we're always kind of trying to plan and look ahead for tomorrow and see where things are going to go. The first line that this new moon takes place in is called being open-minded, recognizing the potential dualities in all things. So, in the world, you don't have to look very far to find there's a lot of divisive opinions going on these days. One person's got one side of the story and the other person's got the exact opposite side of the story. And that is one of the things to understand about logic. Logic is fine until it meets a place where there's a completely opposite point of view to it. And that's what this first line is all about, is to recognize, logic is fine in terms of making plans and stuff like that. But in terms of guiding one's life and to be really clear in oneself, one has to have a certain degree of flexibility there. And just to see, if I've got one opinion, it's guaranteed somebody else has got another opinion. Does that mean to say we can't agree to disagree? So the nature of this new moon is in this area of being open-minded. And as I was saying earlier, Chiron is right alongside here in the same part of the sky. And it's also putting input in preferring company that moves you to a higher appreciation of life. So right next door, Chiron is in gateway number 17, line 2, and it's giving this slightly different thing and saying, look up, raise the frequency a little bit, get out of any sense of having to be stuck in a dogma. I always think like this, it's always the same way. There's a particular accent on this at the moment, because you were remarking just now that Pluto, Mars, and Jupiter were all occupying the same part of the sky as well. And this is in gateway number 61. 61 is a gateway that in the Human Design Center, it sits right up in the top of the chart here, right up in the crown center. And it's the gateway called Inner Truth. And all of us, Pluto takes a long time. It's going to be there for the next couple of years. Jupiter's kind of flying through, Mars is flying through as well, but they're all in this aspect at the moment saying, what's your truth? You personally, yes, there's all these opinions, all these ideas, all kinds of carry on going on in the world, all kinds of threats and fears and concepts of things that are impossible to deal with, financial issues, health issues, political issues. What's your personal truth? That's the crux of the whole thing at the moment. And more, this is going to be the focus for this year, is recognizing, as an individual here with perfect access to life, what is our truth? You mentioned also Uranus a little while ago that was, in this very particular point in the sky. Now in human design, we don't necessarily see aspects the same way we do in astrology, but the planet Uranus this planet of breakthrough and revelation and, you know, jumping out of fixed constraints into life through having profound insights, is in gateway number 27. And 27 is this gateway of nourishing. And it's going to be there until mid-May, and then it's going to move on. It'll come back a little bit towards the end of the year. But, you know, the whole focus for us at the moment for Uranus and breakthroughs is to be really clear how we are nourishing ourselves. What we're eating, what we're drinking, who we're hanging out with, what we're reading, what we're watching. Where are we putting our energy? Is it uplifting? And that is the crux that I see where we begin this particular talk this month.
This is a really phenomenal new moon, because we were talking about just a few days before the new moon. The new moon happens on the 24th of March. And by then, the sun and moon are together at 4 degrees of Aries, just almost exactly conjunct Chiron. So that aspect we were talking about with that up-leveling is getting even more highlighted and emphasized strongly at this new moon. It's like the whole theme for this new moon. And the new moon sets the theme for the coming month, for a 30-day cycle. And the whole theme is about healing the motivation for our actions and finding new direction or new objectives that bring us into greater balance in our lives. So powerful up-leveling going on with this new start at the Aries new moon. Mercury is continuing in its lovely, very artistically inspired aspects that it's been in. Venus now has moved a little further into the sign of Taurus, its home sign, where it's just happy as can be. And it is now forming a triangle aspect, which is, astrologers see that as a very flowing, harmonic kind of aspect that makes things easy, just lets things flow. So Venus, the planet of love, attraction factor, attracting all the good things to us in life, money and opportunities and beauty, romance, art, is now, because of where it is in the sign of Taurus, it's forming a triangle with that whole stellium of planets that I was just talking about, Jupiter, you were talking about too, Jupiter, Mars, Pluto, all together. So that's like the angels singing. You know, it's like
there's a lot working for us.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of support for us from the unseen world, you could say, from that 5th dimensional plane that Uranus operates on, or the 7th dimensional plane that Neptune operates on. There's a tremendous amount of support for us to move forward in our evolutionary process, in our awakening process, and bring ourselves fully, our gifts, our wisdom into the world. That's really the thrust right now, whether that's done through your artistic work or you're a musician, or whether it's done through how you deliver the readings you do for people, or the healing sessions that you conduct for people, that it's done with beauty, with artistry, with balance, and in harmony with universal rhythm. So the other thing about this aspect is that it's working on us to up-level our business life and our work life. So that internal up-leveling that's going on inside is meant to spill over into our professional life or our business.
So as we come to the end of the merry month of March and we start looking into April and April Fool's Day, April the 1st, there's quite a lot of energy going on in the air that Mercury and Neptune are coming together in gateway number 22. And I haven't talked about Neptune. It was interesting to hear you say Neptune in the 7th dimension. Yeah, it's that kind of unrealistic love, the love for love's sake, and you know,
So just unrealistic.
Well, you know, it's like, it's so amazing when you tap into what Neptune can offer, because it transports you into another place altogether.
Yeah, it's transcendent love.
Transcendent love. There we go, in a nutshell. So it's in the gateway of number 22, the gateway we call grace. Now, you know, in everything, grace can also have the opposite, disgrace. So you'll know there's a lot of people that are really struggling in matching a seventh dimensional frequency in the arena of grace. Some people are just not managing it at all. But, there's no judgment around this. This is all our exploration of life and understanding. But to note that we are in this age that is very obviously an age of transformation. 250 years ago, I've said this before, they were making tea in the Boston Harbor. There was the beginning of a massive revolution in this, what became the United States of America. And, it was a problem with the British. They were taxing and not representing anybody here, which was kind of a bad deal, but what to do?
Brits.
It was a 2% tax, anyway, that's a minor detail.
That was also 250 years ago.
I know. But look, there's another revolution happening. And the revolution this time around is a consciousness revolution. And let's just be really clear about that. Before it was people getting involved physically, like having to change things around. These days, it's about people getting involved more from a conscious and an aware point of view, like really recognizing in any situation. And as I said, we started out with this new moon being open-minded. Everybody's got a point of view. Does that mean we have to be in a fight with each other, or can we just accept this about each other? And as we go into the merry month of April, we have Mercury and Neptune together in this gate 22. Now, I call it grace, and it is a natural physical grace that can come through this 22. People that have that, they are naturally physically graceful. Now, what also comes through with the 22 is this connection, whether we call it a seventh dimensional connection, but what I'm saying is it opens doorways where normally we would see just as a brick wall. I can't do that, it's impossible, it's never going to happen, nothing's going to come that way for me. And all of a sudden you realize, oh my goodness, here is a whole new thing that I can put my attention on. And you were saying Mercury getting very artistic and, having this quality at the moment. And I'll just say, as we enter into April, just to see that, reminding ourselves of the utter beauty of this planet and what we've been given to play with, and to remind ourselves of that. So I'm going to hand over to you as we get into April here.
So we'll looking at the first quarter moon happens on April 1st. And that first quarter moon, if you see, the whole cycle, and sort of we break it into quarters. So the new moon starts the seed of a new cycle of experience for 30 days. The first quarter moon is that first sort of check-in point of how am I doing with this? And what do I need to assemble to get this really into action and get, whatever my objectives are, my inspiration is to move forward on, to get that really in significant motion. What's happening at this first quarter moon is that the stellium that we were seeing with Jupiter, Pluto, and Mars has rearranged itself a little bit so that Jupiter and Pluto are still together in Capricorn, still bringing those, that pressure to bring massive changes into our systems, our political, health, educational, financial systems, all of the major systems of the world. Still a lot of pressure there. Those need to transform. But Saturn has moved on into Aquarius, and Mars just followed it. So Saturn it represents it's the big challenge that we may have in life. And anywhere where Saturn is, there's going to be some sort of challenge involved. But the challenge is inviting us to grow. And then Mars is just going to ignite that, really move that into being. So essentially what it's saying is that it's time to take a look at perhaps changing our business model itself, or the model of our service delivery in our business, or the model that we're using to see ourselves and our role within a company that we work for. But basically what it's saying is that our manner of delivery needs to meet the changing needs of our time. If you look around, you see a bunch of retail stores closing that were icons, but they're closing because the trend is moving towards more online shopping. And, that's just going to continue. So seeing what these trends are and seeing the movement of these trends and moving with them is what we're being invited to do at this first quarter moon, so that we're really up with things. We're revolutionizing our way of communicating as well as we develop more intuitive awareness, and we're getting inspired with more, just high, high dimensional sort of work, like meditation process, a yoga process, that takes into that capacity within the human being to transcend, to move out of a third dimensional awareness and move our awareness itself into higher dimensions, where we start to get a lot of very inspiring information. So time to put up our antennas for receiving new frequencies and bringing them in and integrating them in through the fabric of our lives.
Yes, it is. It really is that time where, you think back 5 years ago, and, where we are today is almost unrecognizable to what was going on there. And it's the acceleration is really dramatic at the moment. So, this time next year we'll be, oh goodness, last year, a year ago, and it was like I had a whole different frame of reference. So the key to all of this is, finding our presence, being in present tense. And, I'll always say to myself, as much as to anybody else, your human design gives you a great clue of how to find your way into the present. I want to remark on the 4th of April. And there's the sun here goes into gateway number 51, which is the gateway of shock and the arousing and the wake up. The 51 has a beautiful parallel in the I Ching, in that it's thunder and lightning simultaneously. So, if you've ever been in a house where the lightning hit the roof, you'll know what I'm talking about. You get the flash and the bang at the same time. And so the 51 is all about that. It's like, oh, sudden wake up. And at this moment in time, the South Node, which is the destiny path for humanity, or where we're coming from, what's evolving through us, is in gateway number 10, which is the gateway of our behaviors. What do we do in our life when we're met with a crisis or a difficult situation or something that we have not encountered before? And it's in the 5th line, which basically says, I'm going to stand in my truth here. I'm going to call it as I see it. At the same time, Venus is in gateway number 20, which is the gateway of now. So at the moment this thunderclap goes off, the sun dropping into 57, and sorry, the sun is in the 57, the earth for us is in 57.
Sun is in 51.
Sun is in 51. Opposite at the earth, where we sit, is in gate 57, which is the gateway of awareness and intuition. South Node is in the 10, Venus is in the 20. And this, if you look at the human design chart, it makes up a combination of channels in what we call integration circuitry. And when we see integration circuitry, it's all about the spine that holds the top and the bottom half of us together. So when I see this, I say, this is a moment in time. And this goes on for several days. It goes all the way to the 10th, for the next 6 days. We have to stand up for ourselves. So you were just remarking about, being clear. If you're working in some business and stuff, you have to live in integrity. You have to call it as you see it. You have to stand up for yourself. That's what this week is all about, from the 4th until the 10th of April. And all of us are going to be called on this one, that, things are going to challenge us, things are going to come to us. And this is a moment where our truth is really going to count. That's how I see it. So a few days on, and we come to what you're calling, I think, is a super moon.
Well, it's what astrologers call a supermoon, which, for our purposes today, I'm not going to go into, but it's a full moon. We have a full moon on April 7th. That full moon in Libra, 18 degrees of Libra, opposite the sun at 18 degrees of Aries. And so now we're at a full moon. And so when we're at the full moon part of the cycle, we're really at that point of maximum focus, maximum attention on the whole energy of this particular cycle. So this full moon, and every full moon is different because it's in different signs and it has different aspects, but this full moon is creating a catalytic kind of aspect with Pluto and Jupiter, which we've been talking about, are responsible for a lot of the rumblings that we're experiencing all over the world, in many, many the developed countries of the world, around political questions, and questions of human rights, and the sexes, and the political processes, and distribution systems, and all, world, goods distribution systems, and all of that. So a lot of upheaval going on for the purpose of bringing systemic kind of change worldwide. The only place that we really have to go next as a humanity, because we're obviously not going to blow the whole world up.
We hope.
Well, so far.
So far, so good. Touch wood.
Yeah. Is that the only place now that we have to go is into global cooperation, because it's only with global cooperation that we truly can grow as a humanity into the next stage of our evolution, which is really about developing our intuitive gifts, our psychic gifts, our ability to be connected with people all over the world through just our intuitive wisdom. I mean, we are anyway, but it's just like getting aware of it.
I'm always reminded of that photograph that NASA took in the 60s,
yes,
from the moon. They took a picture
60s,
of the Earth. We're all on this little thing, and this little round blue thing.
Yes, the globe, the blue from dot. Outer space, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're getting that kind of view again. It's like, what's going to be good for planet Earth? And that requires that we up-level all of our systems, and we up-level our values, which is what Uranus is working on us to do right now. Uranus in a right angle to both Mars and Saturn. So if you remember my saying, Uranus brings a radical change and big up-leveling. It often does it through upsetting the apple cart. So it's kind of like a start over. And that's what may need to happen. Hopefully it won't be too rough. But what it's acting on right now is the crystallized sort of systems, the crystallized way of doing things, and breaking up that crystallization so that we begin to see, new ways of managing, not only on the world stage, but this goes to our personal lives. This goes to how we're managing our family lives, our business life, our professional life, the life in our community. So we're really looking at a time of a lot of reorganization for the betterment, for the purpose of having a more fulfilling experience. So this full moon is highlighting the tension that's going on in the world today, but within ourselves today, seeking to find this new place of a greater sense of holistic sort of well-being. So we've got some great healing energy going on right now with the planet Venus, which has moved into the early degrees of Gemini. It's in a linking aspect with the planet of healing, which is Chiron. It's also in a triangle aspect, which is a very flowing aspect, to Saturn and Mars. So let's look at this. Venus is a planet that has to do with our love nature, right? That attracting factor that attracts all the good stuff to us, right? And Saturn is our limits and responsibilities, and Mars is the actions we take in the world. It's our work in the world. So what we have is the lineup and the harmony between our values, what's important to us, what brings us pleasure and fulfillment, and the structures that need to be in place in order to facilitate that, and the way in which we can bring that into our work life, into the fabric of what we do every day. So, it's potentially bringing, catalyzing a very high consciousness awakening throughout all of the world right now. We're having big breakthroughs going on.
Did we notice?
Yeah. And we're forging new pathways of, breakthroughs into new pathways of expression. So, hold on to your hat because it's going to be an exciting year.
So looking at this full moon, the sun still in gateway number 51, this gateway of the arousing shock. The particular life theme while the sun is in the early stages of gate 51 is called penetration. And, we just get this possibility to see into things, just like the thunderclap goes off and, oh, got it, sudden revelation of things. And I'm saying at the same time, we really have to stick up for ourselves, with this integration circuitry between the 57, the 10, and the 20 is saying really, hold yourself upright, be upstanding. And the full moon itself, sun and earth opposite each other and sun and moon opposite each other. So earth and moon opposite the sun. And in gateway number 57, this gateway of intuition. So I'm going to read to you the fourth line in which this full moon takes place. The line is called being fearless. Clear intuition sees afar and must not succumb to fears. So, when everything's changing, it's like, what's going to happen next? Where are we going? What's going to come about in my life? And this is saying, trust your intuition. Like there's all these heightened frequencies available to us. Now, certainly it's possible to stick with a low frequency and just carry on, head down like nothing's going on here. But what I'm saying is there are things opening up for us.
And I think that's going to get increasingly painful as well.
For some people are going to miss the turn altogether, and you can just see, oh dear. But, what we're saying here is do not be alarmed by this. It's a very exciting time to be stepping into something that is outside of our previous experience. And just to see, there's a lot of energy with us, there's a lot of force with us. And I'm saying, from the human design perspective, stand up in your life. You are here as a unique consciousness in human form. You're not here to copy anybody else. You're not here to go along with anybody else's way of doing stuff. This is about being really clear and integrated in your own life. And if you know your human design and you know how it works for you, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This is about being very clear in your type, your authority, your profile, recognizing your life theme. Like, what is the theme that's conveying you through this lifetime and how to go about it?
Yeah, you'll see that as a central thread that runs through your entire lifetime as sort of like a major navigational tool that, just takes you through your whole life. It's so powerful. Okay, so shall we move on to the third quarter moon?
Let's go on, yes.
Okay, so third quarter moon happens on April 14th. And when we have the third quarter moon, now we've moved in the cycle from the new moon to the first quarter moon to the full moon, where we found the sort of fulfillment of the possibility at the new moon. And now with the third quarter moon, we're coming into a time of kind of wrapping up the cycle. So we've done the planning, we've done the visioning, we've done a lot of the implementing. Is there more implementing to do? Because if there is, that third quarter moon is going to catalyze that. So that we get this cycle complete, ready for the coming new cycle. So we've got the sun moving through the last of Aries. I mean, it's still at 25 degrees Aries on April 14th. So it's got about 5 more days to go, 4.5 more days to go until it gets into the next sign. But that will be, essentially the closing of a cycle. And as that cycle is closing, what is important for us to get in place, or what understanding or awakening or realizations, whatever needs to happen kind of within the next few days here of this third quarter moon. So what do we have? Well, we've got the moving soul path for humanity, just, finishing up its last little bit in the sign of Cancer. So our focus, as I said earlier, is going to move. Not that we leave altogether our care and focus of our home and family life, but it's going to move to more our social interactions and our communications and the way that we connect out there in the world. We're going to see a highly connected world. And how do we find our part in that without getting lost in all the technology, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the sort of conundrum of this time.
How do we remain human?
Yes. Yes. And the third quarter moon happens in the sign of Capricorn, right here conjunct with Pluto and Jupiter in Capricorn. So what that's saying is that it's bringing to full awareness as much as possible for those of us who, you know, are willing to just look at more than our own personal life and our own personal benefit, you know, what to look wider at what's going on in our communities and our world. It's a time to get really clear about what's needed in terms of our participation, and to get into gear, get into action to move towards our goals that ideally are going to benefit us, of course, but also benefit others. We've got this beautiful triangle going on between Venus and Mars, now not constrained any longer by the fact that Saturn's there, just flowing the two of them together. I mean, this is like, you know, that romance of the Titanic, you know, this is like that, you know, Venus trine Mars, and you know, you can't get much better than that in terms of romance.
Well, hang on a minute, the ship's going down in the Titanic.
No, but the romance.
It's the expression of it.
The
yes.
love, the, you know, the immensity of the love, which is only highlighted, you know, highlighted when the ship starts going down, but it happens before any of that goes on.
Hollywood version, yeah.
All right, well, anyway, the point being that this sort of, you know, high romance, this, you know, if you've ever really been in love, you know what it feels like. And so, and even if, you know, you've been married for 30 years or together with your life partner for 25 years or whatever, you still have that capacity to fall in love again. And that's really what we're talking about, is falling in love again. So, and you know, bringing our love nature into expression in the world, and also not just keeping it aside for our very special loved ones, but sharing our love with all. Mm. You know, it's social. It's in the sign of Gemini, and Mars is in Aquarius.
And this dance goes on for quite a while.
Yes, it goes on for a month.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
all the way into early
play.
May. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting astrological phenomenon, because that usually doesn't happen
quite so long.
But it's because of the upcoming retrogrades that are going to be happening with Venus and then later Mars, that's creating this phenomenon, this long-standing triangle between the two.
So watch out for Cupid.
Yeah, and you know, plan on doing some fabulous fashion shopping. And
oh Lord,
that always scares him. Okay, anything else to say about the third quarter moon? The other thing that's going on is communicating our new ideas really clearly, like really bringing them to life. Like, what are the new possibilities really? And breathing life into them. So they're not just concepts that are mental, but we start to infuse them with our intention and our actions, which is a perfect place to be right before the sun goes into Taurus, because, you know, Aries brings the impetus for the new cycle. You know, it's the beginning of the new cycle. It's the inspiration for new activity.
So I'm going to move on a couple of days past this third quarter moon, look to the 16th of April. And at that time, the sun drops into gateway number 3. And gateway number 3 in the Human Design is the gateway of new beginnings, like completely something different. And so for the next 5 days, it's going to be in there. And what is happening when the sun goes into this third gate, on the other end of the channel, we've got Saturn sitting in gateway number 60, the gateway of limitations. And so all of us, by transit, we get this channel we call mutation. And with mutation, all of a sudden, things shift out of one form that perhaps we're used to, and we say, well, I'm stuck in the mud here. Nothing's ever going to change about this. And all of a sudden, we find ourselves in a very different context altogether. And sometimes we wonder, how on earth did this happen? You know, and let's just say it's one of these cosmic phenomena that take place. It's going to go for the next 5-6 days till the 21st. And then also concurrent with this is our Earth at that time is going to be lined up with gateway number 50. And the planet Uranus is still in gateway number 27, this whole thing about how we're nourishing ourselves. And so we're going to get this channel, the 5027, which is this channel of caregiving and caretaking. And so just an excellent opportunity for all of us, you know, if we have not been making these shifts in taking care of ourselves and those loved ones around us and our world and society around us, if we have not been doing that, you know, even though Uranus has been going through this gateway number 27 saying, hey, raise it up, you know, start giving yourself things that really nourish you. And so we're going to get this channel of mutation and this channel of caring and caregiving at the same time. So all of us are going to be affected in some way or another, you know, just be reminded, hey, pick it up, be careful and recognize, you know, there's a shift happening anyhow in your life. Be prepared to take on new things in life like that. So Sun in gateway number 3 to me is always a very interesting time of the year, just seeing there's going to be some massive changes, whether we like it or not. And it's just there's this little impetus around it. It's all going to be about how we're looking after ourselves, how we're looking after our world. What are the values that we espouse?
So the sun moves into the sign of Taurus on April 19th. Now that's at 7:45 in the evening Pacific time. For many of you, that will be the 20th of April before the sun's in Taurus, but here we go. Leaving the sign of Aries, where we had the new impetus and new beginning, fire, you know, inspiration, into the sign of Taurus, which is an earth sign. It's about practical reality. It's about getting grounded. It's about getting real and focused, and actually in our bodies, which many of us don't live there a lot. So, I mean, we will be having our next broadcast on April 24th. So we'll be covering more of this latter part of April once again in a bit more depth. But this new moon happens on the 22nd of April. So coming up right after the sun moves into Taurus, new moon at 3 degrees of Taurus, together with the planet of revolution, Uranus, the planet of awakening, up leveling. It's like what you were just talking about, Chetan. It's like it's time to shake it up and get, you know, into a higher frequency of expression, of awareness, and then of course of expression. And if we you know, fail to do that, then we will experience some frustration, because the universe is moving us in this direction. So when we fight it or we resist it, we just create resistance for ourselves, and that ends up being frustration. So ideally, we want to move with this energy. At the same time, all of the energies right now, both the sun moving into Taurus, as well as the aspects that we have with Venus, in a right angle with Neptune, saying, you know, is your vision clear? Are you in this pie in the sky stuff, or are you visioning something that's actually doable, actionable, practical? And then, I mean, there's other aspects that are saying that as well in the chart. So, you know, it's time to get real. All right, we have all this inspiration, right? But what is it going to take in terms of, you know, for our big plans for expansion, in terms of now, you know, the money that's needed, the empowerment that's needed, what are the resources that are going to be needed in order to bring that expansion into actuality. You know, Taurus is about earthing it, bringing it into form and expression. So we're looking at, all right, we have this huge vision, very inspired, which is beautiful. And it's, you know, it when it first comes in, it can seem like I'll just wave my magic wand and it'll all be like that. But you know, there's steps, right? So while the sun is in Taurus, starting on the 19th of April, we're looking at, all right, practically, how do we bring this into form now? Let's map this out, you know, and let's see what the action steps are. and have a plan. You know, Taurus loves plans. Mercury at the same time has now moved into the latter degrees of Aries, so it's forming this right angle with Pluto and Jupiter, and that's part of this sort of questioning. Okay, like I've had a lot of great vision and inspiration, but how on earth am I going to bring this together? So what I want to say about that is that it's good to focus on those things, and of course our attention's being brought there at this time on the how-to and the resources needed. But if you overly focus on them to the extent where you lose the vision, then you're not as empowered as you could be to move it forward. Because the truth is, when we're really inspired about a vision or something that's important for us to do, or a way of being of service, or a love that we want to express, or some art that we want to express, when we're really clear about that and we've made a decision and we're willing to put effort towards it, the universe will way come behind us and support us and bring the resources, the meetings with the people. You know, those chance meetings that seem to just happen? Well, they don't just happen. They're all part of the universal orchestration that comes from the creation that's coming from within you, right? Within all of us, right? So we're creating our reality as we move. So what the pressure of this time as we have this new moon in Taurus is about is saying, all right, now, let's get practical. How are we going to bring this into form? Let's get our heads out of the clouds, but let's not forget to access the inspiration and the wisdom that we have in the clouds, and find ways to bring that in and anchor it into the earth plane in very practical and actionable ways. So we're reorienting as Jupiter and Pluto are in their last week of this phenomenal conjunction they've been in Capricorn. That aspect is going to weaken and move out in the week between the 25th of April to the 1st of May. We're going to see Jupiter moving on. So it's the last of it. So what else do we need to see that is important for us to transform about simply the structures in our life? And so the structures in our life can have to do with our work routines, our business routines, our life routines. But it's about reorienting from our plans for growth and expansion to the work of doing the expanding into the social and the business arenas. So we've got social engagement and connection, which is required to build anything of significance. So powerful turning point at this point in time when the sun's moved into Taurus, and we have that first new moon in Taurus, setting the stage for the coming next 30-day cycle.
So yeah, on this new moon, looking at the placement of the sun and the moon, and they're in gateway number 27. So I was just talking about that, you know, Uranus has been in this 27 for quite a few months now, and it's going to go out in the month of May, early May. And the 27 is all about how do we nourish ourselves. And so now the sun has joined in there as well, and moon as well together. And they're conjoining with Uranus. So there's this tremendous energy here in this whole thing. It's like, this is a must. We've got to raise our frequency in terms of how we nourish ourselves. So, you know, all our health practices, for instance, you know, not just what we're eating and drinking, but, you know, how are we nourishing ourselves and the world around us? You know, are we still into junk food and too much sugar and stuff like that? You know, are we actually cognizant that the frequency, you know, to contain our body in a good way has to rise? So it's across the board, you know, all different things that can bring us nourishment in life. This new moon is landing in 27, and it's line 2. The line is called being accountable. Taking good care of yourself and your needs is natural. So, you know, it couldn't be clearer than that. Just, you know, really it's time to up level. You know, what are the health foods? Do we eat organic? Do we still insist on eating chemical foods? You know,
Fake food.
Fine if they are, you know, nutritious and they're of a high frequency. You know, such a thing is absolutely possible. But it's, you know, all of that. What's the company we keep? Where do we put our values in life in terms of how we nourish ourselves and the people around us? Do we live in nourishing company? Do we live in a nourishing work environment? And it, you know, it's been building and building and building to really come to our attention now. And this new moon says, this is it. You know, things have got to change if they haven't changed already.
Let's shift over to the first quarter moon that happens on April 30th. And by the way, for those of you who are curious about the supermoon, in the month of April, we have 5 lunations instead of usually we just have 4, right? A new moon, a first quarter moon, a full moon, a fourth quarter moon. But in this month, just because of the way it falls, we have, for the second time, we have a first quarter moon. So first quarter moon on April 30th, the moon in Leo, the sign of creativity, creative expression, the impulse to creatively express ourselves, which is very, very strong because the sun in Taurus is conjoined by Mercury and Uranus. So here you've got the life force energy, the sun, you know, our sense of purpose and direction in life, our meaning in life, our sense of identity. We have that with the planet of awakening that, you know, wakes us up to higher states of being. Well, in this case, it wakes us up to our higher self, together with the planet Mercury, which is that natural tendency to communicate and connect ourselves in our environment. So how now do we bring our new understanding, our more enlightened understanding of ourselves into communication in the world is the theme of this new first quarter moon. Of course, we are going to be back with you in the latter part of April. What was that date? The 25th of April, I believe. I said it earlier in the broadcast. And when we're back with you then, we'll be going into more detail about this first quarter moon and looking at it in the context of the whole cycle that will be taking us into May. But for now, we'll just dip into it for a bit and say we're still rocking and rolling all the way until April 10th, actually, with this beautiful Venus and Mars trine. So we still have the potential for very high romance and flow, and a lot of social engagement, a lot of activity, also new ideas, new possibilities for growth and for new directions or new explorations, new creative projects, that sort of thing. So it's a very fertile time, as it often is when the sun is going through Taurus. We will be, we'll just give you a little heads up that Venus is slowing down in her transit through this month of the latter part of April and into the early part of May, because Venus is going to go into a retrograde cycle in mid-May. So we're going to see a big turn that happens in the middle of May. Stay tuned for information about that on next month's broadcast, which is actually on the 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that should be an exciting thing to see happening. During that cycle, we'll also see the moving soul path going over into the sign of Gemini. So we have this heightened communication and connectivity, you know, a time for taking some well-considered and well-planned out action while the sun moves through Taurus this particular year.
So just a closing note from the human design perspective, the planet Pluto in the last days of the month of April is going to make a turn and appear to be going backwards from our point of view here on planet Earth. And it's in gateway number 61. It's going to go all the way back through 61, then it's going to turn around and come up all the way back through 61. And it's, you know, it's just rubbing into us. This is the gateway of inner truth. And inner truth is a very personal thing. Truth, yes, is universal, but to contain the truth, to recognize the truth, to be in the truth, that is what Pluto is reminding us about. And so it's been, you know, pulling apart all these systems and things that don't work, that may have worked in previous times, but they don't anymore. So again, it's a very, very personal thing for us. This is a massive time of transformation for us to recognize our truth and stand in our truth, whatever else is going on in somebody else's life. So as it comes to the end of the month, the sun drops into gateway number 24, And those of you familiar with the human design chart know all of a sudden with the 61 at the top, the 24s beneath it, all of us get this channel, the 6124, which is a channel of deep thought. You know, it's a refining mind. It's a mind that keeps returning back. Did I get it right? Can I get a clearer answer on something? You know, so we're all going to get this foretaste of something that's going to come much more into our lives in the middle of May, where the planet Uranus goes into the 24. And, you know, then we're really going to be, you know, focused. We must find personal truth, but we're getting a foretaste of it as the month of April comes to an end. And, you know, I would just say, you know, be aware there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in your head. No need to overthink stuff, you know, no need to take extra aspirin or anything like that, because you're just, you know, it's like the mind is going so busy, but just as much as possible, witness the fact you're going to be thinking more than usual. And, you know, it's a refining mind. It's like trying to get closer and closer and closer to the understanding of truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a joy, as it always is, to get to share this information with you. And we love being with you. We would love it if you would invite friends or people who you feel would really benefit from the broadcast. There's already many hundreds of people who come every month to hear our take on the energies of the month and our guidance and support as to how to use those energies. It's open to everyone. It's not just to people in our human design community. So just so that you know, it's just an offering for the world. And we will be overjoyed to be back with you again next month. We're coming into some really exciting time as we hit the summer. Lots of real changes, big stuff.
So we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.